Bigger than Capes.
Give me some of that sadness.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it, and then I watched it.
Right.
Hello, welcome to Bigger Than Capes. This is our February 2022 Indie Comics Roundup, and I'm joined by Matt and Will, collectively Bigger Than Capes. Angela's not with us this week because
she's just a bit scheduling conflicts. She's too important to hang out with us now.
Yeah, just, different time zones and all that. Couldn't be with us.
Different time
Ambassadors
zone.
of dignitaries to see.
Yeah,
Her international jet setter lifestyles finally got the better
it's
of
catching up with It's catching up with us.
So how are you guys?
I'm great. Like one of my favorite mangas is finally after like nearly 20 years since it finished, getting an official English language release, and that is YKK, or like as it's known, like Yokohama Kaidasho something, but it translates roughly as like Yokohama shopping log, and it's about an android who runs a cafe during like humanity's kind of quiet years as the world is kind of coming to a close for humanity because of climate, an unspecified climate disaster some years back, and it's such a cozy like slice of life kind of manga that gives you so many questions and never answers any of them. It's like Seinfeld. It's a manga about nothing, and I love it, and I'm so pleased. Everyone please buy it, so they have to keep putting out the rest of it.
That is how it works.
It sounds a little frustrating, I'll be honest.
What, the manga?
The book that gives you questions and no answers.
It's what's great about it, honestly. It gives you some, I should say. Like, there's some, but it's more about like making you think about it and making you ponder the questions rather than answers. And it's very much real life doesn't always have cozy things where you know why things happen or the things that you want to happen actually happen. Like,
but I like escapism.
There's literally they have a gun early on. That gun is never fired. They ignore Chekhov.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it is fired. It is fired. It is never fired at anything other than maybe a sign as a target.
Otherwise, I'm fine, thanks, Zach. How are you?
I'm relatively fine. Yeah.
Relatively
fine.
In the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, not a lot to report really. Slight comic news. I mean, is comic news. It's not slight. It's just is comic news. Valiant have announced new books because this is, of course, the next in a sequence of the Summers of Valiance. I'm sure you're both well aware.
The latest, yeah.
We're getting new Bloodshot. We're getting new Exo, and we're getting more Shadow Man on top of Shadow Man and the kind of Dead Side war we're heading into in the Book of Shadows, which I'm sure we all remember fondly from, didn't it happen at DC in like 10 years ago? And wasn't it also a element in Charmed? I think it was the Book in Charmed was the Book of Shadows, right?
I got nothing for you.
I never watched Charmed.
That doesn't sound true.
It doesn't, does it? I seem like a person who would probably have watched a lot of Charmed.
Yeah. Charmed Wiki confirms.
Good. Good. I didn't realize Shadow Man had become so popular to warrant this many books.
Has it?
The shock in your voice says it all. I think basically Cullen Bunn's kind of Shadow Man run and Punk Mambo Mini have kind of are coming together right now, and yeah, the next big event's going to be the Dead Side War, and then yeah, we're kind of going full onto the supernatural side, which is something Valiant dabble with, but they always seem to be like, you know what this supernatural story arc needs? Ninjak. or it always seems to be let's chuck some Ninjak at it, or Eternal Warrior, or something that
Ninjak does like to just show up.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, it's still early days. There is still time for the inevitable Colin King to
the cameo,
seemingly the Shadow Man's only friend, unlike the Valiant Universe web series where everyone was mates with Shadow Man.
Yeah,
just get him on the blower. You know?
Yeah. I remember that now.
That was some time ago.
He's always there to resolve a plot point.
Yeah, do some magic, make it right.
But more importantly, Archer and Armstrong
are also getting a new book. I don't think we've got any further details on that.
No, we've just got a cover image.
Just a cover, yeah. Well, you know,
I'd really like for this to lead to another Delinquents.
Yes,
I think that's a series that could do with a revival.
Yeah, just like another mini.
Mm-hmm.
Cullen Bunn written, a kind of Shadow Man in place of Quantum and Woody.
Yeah,
I feel you.
Yeah, Shadow Man and Dr. Mirage versus Ninjak and Livewire in a deadly serious techno magic.
Yeah.
Super feud.
Dug yourself a hole there, Will, haven't you?
Yeah, real deep one.
It's shit times in the world, especially at the moment. So good news like this is great to get.
Yeah, it's nice to have new value after a bit of a quiet year.
It's nice to have distractions right now.
Very much.
I agree. Speaking of distractions, this isn't indie comics related, so apologies, but has anyone else watched Hitmonkey?
I've not yet.
I haven't. I don't have Disney Plus.
Well, obviously get it and watch Hitmonkey, Matt. Come on.
Is it well worth my time?
I really liked it. I think we've slammed through it in like a week. So it's like Archer as a ghost, but with a monkey.
Do you remember when when they were like about 10 or 15 years ago, they were like, hey, like the new big character coming to Marvel Comics, Hitman Monkey. And it was like, and then it like had a couple of issues and no one paid any attention.
Yeah, because I looked into this because I was like, I remember the like, you're going to get some Hitmonkey. I think it was 2010, and it was like when Daniel Way was doing Deadpool. It was a Daniel Way creation that was online and then printed and then successful, and then no one's talked about Hitmonkey until they made a TV series out of it. So I guess
I've got to say I've never heard of Hitmonkey until this series came about, so it's new for me.
Maybe, you know, that I'm sure that's how everyone felt about the Eternals. So it's exactly like the Eternals, except with a assassin monkey, a Hitmonkey, if you will.
An assassin primate.
What would you call that?
Idea for a spin-off show.
Assassin primates.
Assassin chimp.
The evil, you know, the evil side of that same coin.
Done.
But yeah,
$1 million.
I would recommend checking out Hitmonkey.
Fair. I will give that a watch.
I think Will do. I think God, that's hard to do. I think Will do, and I think Matt will completely forget about this conversation.
What? Probably. Like, I've not watched anything that's been on Disney Plus.
We'll get you round for a day, Clockwork Orange you, and get you through all of it.
That'd be fine.
You've not seen all 9 hours of Get Back yet?
No, God. Jesus Christ.
That's dangerous there.
Like, if I wanted to watch like 4 people like slowly come to hate each other, I'd just watch the recordings of this podcast.
True, it's a very similar experience.
We are geniuses. Genii.
We are often referred to as the Beatles of podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, not by people, but like...
No. In the, like, I don't know. Like, yeah, I thought I had something. But, you know... I'm not creative like a Beatle.
I think we've got more in common with the Beatles and Powerpuff Girls than we've got in common with the actual Beatles in the real world.
Oh, I love the Beatles episode.
It's one of the best episodes.
Just, yeah.
Of a cartoon that's over 20 years old. Should we do what we're here to do rather than make niche references for...
Yeah, for people who are probably not old enough to remember it anymore.
I like to think there's some old people that care.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll listen to this podcast, but...
They're dying off. Right, so should I get started with book number 1?
Hells yeah.
Book number 1 is Land of the Living Gods from Aftershock Comics. It's written by Isaac Mogajane. The art is by Santos and letters are by Dave Sharp. Full disclosure, just going to steal this blurb. So, set during the last days of humanity, Land of the Living Gods follows Naledi, a teenage girl living in the deserted city of Johannesburg, who believes in a hidden land where the gods still reside. Hoping the gods may be able to restore the world to life, Naledi will head out into the unknown with little to hold on to but her faith and her magical plant. Well, Bio, what did you come to as the pronunciation of the plant?
Bio?
Yeah, I wasn't entirely sure, but...
I think I said it differently every time I read it.
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar place with that. So, make your own pronunciations.
That's the fun of comics. I think that this book is interesting. I think I found quite a lot of it quite successful. But I didn't finish it with a big hook in me. Really looking forward to find out exactly what was coming next. It's a lot of world building, I think, early on, or at least sort of gives insinuations towards the world without actually giving a lot of information. But in doing so, lacks a little bit of character building, I think. I don't really know who Naledi is.
Yeah.
By the end of this issue.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fair. I think we get some little hints, but not a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
And she is kind of the only character
who we really spend that much time with.
Other than the plant, Bio.
I love the plant.
I mean, any
but
sort
not
of
enough
like
to say its name.
Any non-humanoid sort of character is always a win in it.
Yeah,
in comics, with like pet or companion.
It's very expressive, and I appreciate that. But no, I like. It's nice to have like 2 like Afrofuturist books this month because like
I mean spoilers.
Shush. I love like about like different cultures, like spiritual and philosophical beliefs, and like one of my focuses that like when I was at university was on like like religious history, and I still do some like studies in that sort of stuff now. So like just any book that really kind of like especially in like a sci-fi setting as well, that really kind of works to integrate various cultures, like spiritual beliefs into it, I'll be kind of a sucker for. So I really quite liked this. I don't know enough yet to know really sort of like whether things like whether the idea of like the land of the living gods or anything is like an actual real world belief. Like I know about like albino persecution in certain like in certain cultures on the continent and stuff like which is something which is where sort of our cliffhanger is as with like as a character like a seemingly like a bounty hunter, like a bandit of some sort, captures Naledi to basically like harvest her body for like regents for
witchcraft, yeah,
and stuff. It's like it's a cool little world, and I just love the little pet owner kind of relationship. But it's kind of between Naledi and Boyo. Like it's quite a cool little one where like it's also acting as like a guide and watching a plant like point at a map and stuff really makes me smile.
Quite amusing.
And the kind of like the sort of augury that's done by Ntate Malusi is really cool, and like the colors used in that sequence, it's like there's so much shadow used that, and like the characters' colors are very like, as much as they are blacks, they're purples and stuff. Like it's all of these dark shades kind of blending together, but with just enough like difference in them that you can make out, that you can go like, oh, these are all, you know, that there are all of these different colors. It's really cool.
I agree with you though. I think the coloring is one of the more effective like aspects of the book, along with the art itself. Like I think the character design and stuff. I'm not sure I get quite enough of the overall world to get a grasp of what the conditions are. But there's a point where, spoiler alert, she buries her mother.
Yes.
And it goes through like 4 panels, and the colours sort of show you a sunset into nighttime. So everything is kind of a burnt orange, a pink, and then into kind of deep blues and purples. And it's, extremely effective sort of art. And that's definitely the positives of the book. I say I just kind of came off it a little bit unattached, I suppose.
I get that. Like it's a book that I think relies on you kind of buying its promise as much as it like, because I think it's a good first issue. But I can understand kind of struggling to find something to grasp onto.
We don't really know what the stakes are in terms of the living gods themselves. There are immediate stakes of her, you know, running for her life and not being...
not being hacked up into parts.
Yeah. But in terms of the kind of the title of the book, as you say, the promise of it, I don't know. It's a very difficult line to tread in it. I don't want everything to be over explained, like up front. You want some mystery, but Yeah, I guess I want a little bit more of the condition of the world and what it means to find these living gods, or what it might mean.
Yeah.
A little bit more.
Yeah, we're
a little bit more of
told
that might
that
have just.
we're told that it's a big sort of like that. We're told the stakes are like for the living and the dead, but
Mhm.
what that means, is unclear. Just that
Yeah,
there's
and I think maybe a little more of that might have just, I don't know, got me a little bit more invested.
okay.
But not a huge negative, really. Like I said, I think it looks very, very nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think the art is almost the strongest thing here. I think Santos's style is kind of similar to Sophie Campbell's at times, which
that. I was trying
immediately
to
appeals
place
to
it.
me.
I was trying to place it, and
It's,
I think
it's
you're
not all
right.
the time. It comes and goes. But
No, but like occasionally you get it just in the faces
yeah, more than anything else.
and like the shape, like the body shapes, like the way that they move is really quite like Sophie Campbell.
Yeah,
Which,
actually,
definitely a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't clock it immediately, but you are spot on with that.
I am curious as to where this is going to go, but it's not. It feels like the kind of story we do get quite frequently. The kind of search for whatever,
Yeah,
gods, elder beings, whatever type of, like Swamp Thing looking for the Parliament of Trees, or don't know why Swamp Thing's always the first place I go, but here we are. But I feel like there's still potential to do interesting things with that and take it in a different direction.
I think that seeing it with different, like you're 100% right. We've seen like the base elements of this story like 100 times, but I think that the cultural differences, like the cultural trappings and exploration of like the various concepts that come with those are what could make this very interesting.
Definitely. And I think it says a lot that I think this is the first time we've kind of done this with, I don't know, an African cultural backdrop.
That we've seen.
Yeah, at least, or at least it feels like within American comics, it feels like.
I mean, it could be our own ignorance on it, honestly, but like,
yeah,
I've read some other like Afrofuturist stuff, but this I liked this one quite a bit. Cool plan.
Yeah, cool plan.
Cool plan.
Shall we move on to the next book?
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, we shall.
So this month we decided to do a manga, and we are doing The World of Summoning, the first chapter of that by Yuki Kodama. Basically, the high concept for the book is the idea that like all of a sudden into the regular world, just strange like beings and items and such, like, and places even start to be brought through at random to our world. And over time, it seems like people have developed the ability to kind of do that with practice at will as well. And theoretically, this kind of, you're like, oh, does this lead to like a post-scarcity utopia? And it's like, probably not, because people are pricks. And there's this whole concept of like worldview, which is kind of consensus view on the world, and like the presence of particularly strong or like strange creatures and items and such can change that worldview and create distortions in our reality. And sorcerers are people who deal with those and have the ability to call things through. And our main character is a boy called Takoyo, who lives with creatures down below Tokyo, in the fantasy district, which I kind of love as a phrase, just being able to say like, oh yeah, it's in the fantasy district, where creatures who are stuck in our reality but haven't kind of been accepted into the consensus view of the world have to live outside of like human notice. I really liked the high concept of this. And I always appreciate a shonen manga that seems like it's probably going to be a mixture of comedy and like battle manga, that has a protagonist whose distinguishing characteristic is and like drive is actually compassion, even for enemies. Like, I appreciate that, and I appreciate like kinder manga in that regard, like battle manga that has kindness kind of to it. That's what I connected with regarding Demon Slayer. I quite liked Demon Slayer quite a bit because it was kind of all about compassion and kindness, and whilst also not denying that you can have those things whilst still harboring real hate as well. Like, not hatred, but animosity. That you can still have those things whilst having animosity towards someone, that whilst doing something that, you know, whilst fighting someone, you can do so in like a way that is caring and stuff. Like, so this has that, like, our main character is kind of driven because he, you know, living with these creatures outside the worldview, he just wants to give them the things that they miss from their homes. And I find that really sweet and quite endearing. I didn't love this because it's a fairly standard like shonen manga opening chapter. It gives us a little bit of our character, what makes them stand out, tells us a little bit about the world, and establishes what our character's main goal is going to be. It's, you know, it's, I'm going to become king of the pirates, I'm going to become the best ninja boy, all that sort of stuff. Like, and this is, you know, like, I'm going to become a summoner so that I can give these people, like these creatures, what they miss, because I have compassion for them. Like, I love them. I liked the high concept more than it, and I actually think that this could go to some interesting places when we learn more about the world and about like the human side of it. Because like the fantasy district seems to be like semi sort of slums, and I want to know what the sort of status of daily life is like for people as well. Like, this could theoretically, like I was saying, be a post-scarcity world once you have the ability to just pull things that are needed through, like, you know, it's potentially the replicator from Star Trek. Like, you know, as long as you don't care where it's coming from, you've got access to whatever you need. Really interested to see where it goes. Wasn't blown away by it, but I think that's fairly kind of standard for a first chapter in a manga, like of this sort. Well,
I mean, I completely agree with your sentiment, to be honest. Like, I think the high concept felt new and like really interesting and full of potential, but it's going to take time to build. And ultimately this ends up being a very standard
Yeah,
shown an issue.
I did like some of the creatures' designs though, and seeing like them talking like regular people whilst having like and talking in slang and stuff, whilst just having like a weird body where like, oh, it's a tiny weird bird that's just like talking in weird slang and stuff at me, and like
a little floating,
and his grandpa's a little floating squid and stuff, and like all sorts of stuff like that. But yeah, it needs time.
Yeah.
Yes. I do agree. I think it's like a lot of mangas. It has a very kind of
slow start
that is kind of instantly familiar. I think because so many mangas start with a similar kind of energy to them.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like shonen. Like
which I guess is good because it means it does feel instantly kind of familiar no matter which shonen it is. There's normally a sense of like, I know this world is what this world is going to be like and where this is going to go. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are mangas that take massive turns from that.
Oh yeah, and like usually when they decide like a few volume or two in, like, and here's what's really actually the story is going to be.
Here's the real plot.
That's cool.
Yeah, and that could be the case here. This could take all kinds of turns. We do get, whilst it starts quite nice, we see that one of the other summoners is kind of a dick, and there's potential for this to take a turn. That might
be the rival.
Yeah,
and I think that
you could say
the view from the human world of what the fancy district is clearly warped, and through the eyes of Tokoyo, you see that the human world point of view is heavily coloured by their worldview.
But there is fun kind of stuff in there about like how it's affecting like pop culture and stuff, like with people with like the ones that have been adopted into their worldview, like into the consensus, being like, people fashionably like dressing up as them, like, oh, cat girls actually exist now. So of course, like certain like teenagers are going to pretend to be like cat people, and like there's a thriving kind of musical culture coming from it. And stuff in like the magazines that it's talking about, like it's that sort of stuff. Like thinking about that is cool. Like, and I want to see more of that sort of stuff. But yeah, I just want to see more of it. Like we've said before, like this is a book that I'm interested enough in to actually want to see more, just because I like the high concept and the little bits of promise, like the little bits that are kind of promised me in it.
I think, it's got a lot of potential, and as you say, it hints at the avenues it might take, expanded on that story. It is unfortunate that sort of manga of this nature sort of has to take this road,
and it often comes out a lot quicker as well as the thing as well. So like, and is like often like we'll have an end point and a start point planned out, but not necessarily sure how long it's going to take to get there, and some of that will depend on whether they can keep being published. But so I just hope that it gets long enough for me to actually see some of that promise. Zach.
So,
next book.
Yes, books, the next one. So this week I'm talking about New Masters from Image, written by Shobo Koka with art by Shof Koka. I'm going to take you a little bit from the kind of about the world section at the end of this and throw it in with my description. So this isn't actually told to you in the issue. Don't worry about it. So basically in the early 21st century, the Jovian fleet.
It means from Jupiter.
Well, I'm doing it with a Spanish accent, Matt. The
It's like
Jovian
it's
fleet,
almost like you never watched Martian Success in the Desco.
not even sure what that is.
It is.
The Jovian fleet arrive in our solar system, bringing the Ark of Species, which crashes down into Earth, as you do, and kind of radically changes Earth.
Yeah, it upsets kind of the status quo in terms of like the major economic centers of the world.
And we're told that there's kind of debris scattered across the Earth and exotic fuels leaked into the soil. And the focus on kind of New York, London, Paris shifts to more of a focus on Hong Kong, Mumbai, Lagos, and Morocco. Yeah, it's good when I read stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, very real good at it.
Which then leads to people kind of trying to find obsidian in places, mining obsidian because it's the biggest export we have on Earth all of a sudden. And it's getting more and more dangerous to get, and people are doing stupid things to try and get it, like diving to
ridiculously deep.
Yeah,
like levels and giving themselves like
just a little bit, or
getting the bends.
Yeah.
And they should. It's the best Radiohead album. Oh, I hate that I made that joke. So
it was okay.
To begin with, our focus is on Ola and her kind of
her robot friend,
robot pit droid lizard, which I'm gonna guess this is a guess is pronounced Assay.
Yeah.
As they go hunting for obsidian in an underground location that has dead people in that. That's nice.
Yeah. Is it wreckage of of part of the ship?
I think so. Yeah.
That was my assumption, because the very first page is showing like two halves of a ship.
Yeah,
and I think it details her jump
through the bulkhead
and then sort of jumps into the lower portion.
Yeah,
hooking her robot arm.
Yeah.
The robot arm is pretty cool.
Yeah.
A Misty Knight robot arm.
Yeah, and like you can almost see like synthetic muscle.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But I quite liked this. I quite liked I think it's always nice when we have a conscious shift away from America, and it's something we don't get a lot. So
as much as anything, it's visually like really interesting when we're so used to seeing like fashions and architecture just from a Western,
pretty typical American, European.
It's great to see like all this stuff, to see food, to see architecture, to see like clothing. It's awesome. I love that. And the MacGuffin of the series seems to be, as the sort of subtitle of the series, I had it and I've misplaced the page.
Looking forward to Matt approaching a word that's got 4 accents in it.
The Eye of Orunmila, maybe, or Orunmila, or Orunmila.
Yeah, I couldn't settle on one. There's too many accents for my brain to pick through.
Yeah, which is like some sort of computer like data bank that holds just thousands of years of history and knowledge and schematics that is by itself a world-changing artifact, and understandably so. It's not one of these things where it in itself is power, which I appreciate. It's not one of these ones where it's like, oh, it's like it's specifically just like, it's a weapon or anything. No, it's like, no, it's a library.
Yeah,
like it's not just a weapon. It's a library of weapons. It's a library of medicine. It's history. It's everything. It has the chance to change everything we kind of know about the world or think we know, and potentially like to get us out of reliance on, you know, obsidian being like the only thing that Earth has to compete in this like in this interplanetary market. And yeah, like I loved this book. Like, blame it on me being like a world building person, but just seeing everything that's going on with it, and the variety of the variety of clothing, and the way that, like, you know, you can clearly see that people are from, you know, that people are from different backgrounds. By what do they wear on their head, how do they trim facial hair, all this sort of stuff, like, you know, things that are like various cultural practices, and tied into like what is a man, what is a woman, like all of these things like that. It's so cool seeing, like, I really like that, you know, it creates its own like dialect that's based on like you know, that clearly brings over things from you know, from various dialects, from various like slangs, and like amalgamates them into this new sort of pidgin that like everyone kind of speaks it slightly differently. And you know, you can tell when the upper class people are speaking, like, you know, they speak in what's a you know, like a more sort of a more formal language that's, you know, quite distinct. It's a really well thought out book. I cannot wait for more of this. I loved it.
I agree. I think this is a really strong first issue. I think one of my complaints would be that it is pretty dense. I think there's a lot of information in it.
It fits in so much in 32 pages.
Yeah, and whilst I'm okay with there being a lot of information, I think I hope that kind of gets expanded on, rather than just dumping it and going, pick through that yourself, we're going to get on with it. I think it would be nice to have something to back up some of the ideas. And I like that we're kind of jumping all over the place with different ideas going on. It kind of feels similar in a way to stuff like that Netflix show. Totally got this. Arcane
yes.
kind of gives you different perspectives. So you see the same events from opposite sides. So here we're seeing kind of the obsidian thing from the side of Ola, and then we're seeing it from the side of Governor. I've written it down somewhere, haven't I? Governor Ojimo. We're kind of seeing her deal with it on like a, you know, official capacity. So we see the same ideas bounce back and forth, which is a good way of building the world and showing how important obsidian is, and how the Jovian fleet thing has been massive and affects everyone. Curious how it's all going to tie together in the grand scheme of things. I don't know if this is ongoing or limited. I feel like if it's limited,
I think it's limited.
I think that it could be tough to fit all of this into a limited series, but stranger things have happened. So
yeah, I think I come in pretty similarly. Like, I don't think I absolutely love it, but I do think that like this world building is its most successful element for me, and the amount that it does get in, the hints to things, just about how the world works, as you've mentioned already, like the change in perspective of which characters we're following, feel like somewhat disconnected, but all of them, I think, also tell you quite a bit about that character and their world and their sort of interaction with it. Undoubtedly, they're all going to come together. I got a feeling the characters later on might be Ola's parents, but that's just a guess.
Yeah, that was my assumption.
Yeah, I certainly thought. But
Look forward to be proven wrong.
This is 1 of 6.
Okay.
I guess I'm somewhere in between. Like, I think the world building is quite good. I agree there's a huge amount going on there. I guess I wouldn't be overly disappointed if not everything is looked at in a great deal of depth.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think
not
I
everything
get
needs that.
Not always, no. I think I get a good enough impression of this, the sort of political landscape that this story is being told under. That, you know, like there are kind of these community leaders that the Reyes, the Reese family sort of approach with some technology that they want to use. It'd be interesting to find out more about like their community, but if that doesn't happen in 6 issues, that's okay. I can sort of work without that. But I think it touched on a lot of different areas of this world, and all of them seemed quite interesting. Yeah. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing how it all comes together. At 36 issues, it gives itself a bit of space.
36 pages.
Sorry, Christ. 36 pages. It gives itself quite a bit of room to breathe, and I think it needs it. But I think we've all agreed in the past that can be quite good for a first issue when you need to really like lay that groundwork out.
Like, it's definitely helped by having the world of at the end. But I get the feeling that the hope is for this to be like a mini series that launches another mini series. Yeah. And stuff, with it having like the subtitle once you get in. But like the Shobo and Shoff, like it's a Creators for Creators grant that funded this. And I want to explore this so much. So I hope we get some more, like, hopefully, like, I won't have seen everything I want to see by the end of 6 issues, and we'll desperately want more.
That'll be good.
So on to the last book.
So unfortunately, it's back to me again. The last book is Step by Bloody Step, published again by Image Comics. The story is by Cy Spurrier. The art is by Matthias Bergara. The colours are by Matthias Lopez, and the graphic design is by Emma Price. What to say about this? This is the story of
child and giant.
Girl carried by giant. I mean, the actual back page probably gives the best synopsis. A girl wakes. She has no memories, no name, no language, nothing except a giant. And that's pretty much it. I had quite a sort of a flip in my opinion of this book. This is the longest of the ones we've read, I think, this month, at 48 pages. And I think for the first maybe 10 or 15, I was thinking, this doesn't really work as a silent comic for me.
Yeah.
Mainly because it looks great. I think the art on it is really nice for the most part. But it's also quite slow moving in its opening kind of gambit. Like I said, where do we get to? Yeah, I mean, we're up to 22 pages before, not more than that, about 25 pages before kind of anyone else is introduced other than those 2 characters. And through its kind of plodding nature, I was sort of thinking, what's the story to tell here? Like, where do you go with this? And then sort of by the end, my opinion had flipped on it, and some of the kind of twists and potential revelations, despite having no idea what's actually going on, was sort of interesting enough that by the end of it, I thought, I do want to see what this kind of leads to, and how this story. I assume it's all going to be silent. I don't know if anyone's got any input
it's not
on
exactly fully silent. Is the thing. There's a language we don't understand.
Yeah,
but yeah,
for all purposes, like there's nothing to
read.
Yeah. Oddly enough, there's not even like any onomatopoeia either, as such. I found.
Yeah, that's it's. You don't realise how strange that is
until it's missing. Yeah. But as I say, there was, I don't know, something about the kind of the last few twists and turns.
Yeah, I agree.
Kind of sparked my interest in it. You get these kind of tall blue guys who apparently are looking for girl/giant. And I don't know, I guess what that means, where they come from, their bizarre, like, robo-vulture that they ride around, just hints at a much richer tapestry, I think.
Yeah, the blue people look like they're from, like, a Mobius comic. Like, and not just because they're blue, but also because of their clothes and stuff. They look very, very Mobius.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll agree. Like, I expected to be into this from the get-go, and I was a little surprised when I wasn't, but then happily surprised when I managed to find my way back in, and then read it again and go, okay, like, there's a fair bit of mystery to it, like what's actually going on here. Like the giant who you kind of think is a robot at first, or I did at first, like until kind of later on when some stuff is revealed, and like I was like, oh, she's walking with some sort of robot, and then like when that happens, like there's a lot kind of that. I mean, I almost said left unsaid in this, but like everything's left unsaid. But there's like just cool little things watching this big old suit of armor, like sewing together tiny clothes, like it was making dolls' clothes for the girl from like wolf pelts.
Yeah.
To like it helping sort of this village by putting the girl's blood into the ground, which causes a dying, like barren field. All of the seeds to sprout, and the crops to start like producing, and it being, like watching it like a harvest like meat and skins from various things, and it stopping the girl from accepting anything from strangers. There's a lot that you're just like, okay, like there's clearly things here, and like the nature of the creature inside the armor, and what all of the horrible looking things there actually mean.
And there's a moment with the little girl sort of cuts her face.
Yeah.
And the giant puts her blood into the ground.
Yeah, that's what I was saying about where it made the crops grow.
Yeah, and then like towards the end of the comic, you see it, and they are
huge.
Like 7 feet tall. Yeah, so there's it manages to get in those elements of plot and of intrigue without saying anything.
Yeah.
It needs those 48 pages because I say in the first
otherwise
you
wouldn't get anything from it.
It just felt a bit slow, and particularly as I say it's an assumption, but I think this series is going to be all like this.
Yes.
It's a big risk to take. Like, it's quite bold, and I think doing a silent issue in the middle of a run.
Like G.I. Joe, like silent interlude, or that issue of Sixth Gun.
Or like Pizza Dog.
Oh yeah,
what have you?
Yeah,
like you can throw them in and they're fun. This is kind of risky, and it's having a go at something a bit different.
Yeah.
I think it's something we do see, but we normally kind of get it with like I want to say it's by Sean Tam. Is it The Arrival, where he did the kind of immigration story that's entirely silent, or in languages that are just symbols, so it can be like, this is what it's like in a new place where you don't know anything. So
yeah,
I think it's weird to see it in something that's not like focused. It's weird to see it in like a single issue kind of project. You're welcome.
But yeah, overall good. Sort of a bit of a surprise, I think.
It's almost weird to say about like it feeling slow to start, when at the start is when you get, like, before we got really hooked into it is when all of the action is.
Yes.
It's weird to say that, but it is very true.
I think that's something that I don't know, I guess action in comics is frequent and not always very good.
And it's not bad here at all.
Not at all. But I just mean that I think the things that truly get me into comics tends to be sort of like context and character and plot.
You need to know why those wolves are having their heads cut off.
But that's just it, is when the action is within a context. And that can be just that this is sort of ludicrous comedy violence, or it could be that it's the single punch of the kind of weak protagonist against the strong antagonist. That whatever it is, like, that's much more endearing to me than just sort of fighting for the sake of fighting. And I think the art throughout this is really, really nice, particularly when they first get out of the sort of snowy conditions and you start getting much more vivid colours. And I think the action is drawn really good. There are some quite funny bits where, like, this giant is fighting creatures while the little girl is just like tooling about in the woods. And that contrast of it just becoming such a norm of like, okay, you need to go and fight these like bat monsters again. I'm just going to go play with some sticks. I thought it was quite amusing. But yeah, weird that when you say it, that like it is the action, which actually is kind of just a bit of a drag.
Yeah, just because you want to find out, like you say, the context. And like that's why going back later to the action when you can appreciate it a little more is kind of almost better in this one. Like, and you can go, oh yeah, no, the action's great. Like, it looks fantastic and stuff. And you can appreciate it, like, say, just a little bit more kind of now that you have just a tiny bit more context. Like, we're still lacking so much. Yeah. But you've got a little bit more, and you've sort of got a slightly better understanding of the relationships.
Agreed.
I think there's a kind of Scotty Young, Jorge Corona vibe with this, like their like Middle West in kind of appearance. So I guess there's no dialogue there, so I guess it's more Jorge Corona than it is Scotty Young. And also, and this is something that I think Matt's read, so let's find out. The Imurian Tales Waterbringer story, where it's the kind of princess being guided around, baby. You and me both. So I think there's a similar kind of vibe to that. Yeah. And it is real pretty.
Yes, it is.
It is not a Zach book, and that's all I'm going to say. I'm just
for those reasons.
For those reasons, I'm out. No, I knew both of you would like this because I know both of you.
As I say, I didn't like it right away.
Neither did Will, but in the end, both came around.
Yeah. Shall we go to our final judgments?
Which will live and which will die.
Yep. So Zach, you brought your business plan here. Asking for 20,000 for a 10% stake, and I've got to say, I'm out. You've got me thinking about Dragon's Den, Zach. It's
Duncan Ballantyne by the sounds of it.
Yeah, he's
specifically.
I'm assuming you can't. I'm assuming you just can't remember the voice of anyone else on Dragon's Den.
There's Theopathitus.
I'm Deborah Meaden, and
good. They're 10 years into the past.
There's Deborah Meaden.
Peter Jackson. I'm all about the OG dragons.
Yeah.
I don't know the new ones.
I would love to try and speculate who's on current Dragon's Den, but I just don't know.
No, I don't. I know that Duncan Ballantyne left, and with him, so did my heart.
So did all of my respect.
Seems like a massive prick.
He could be a lovely bloke. You don't know.
He could.
But much like Duncan Ballantyne, we've judged him, and we're now going to judge these comics.
Much like Duncan Ballantyne, we're out of time.
We're out.
Delete that, please.
I'm going to loop it and make it put like a dance beat behind it, I think.
So yeah. Who wants to go first? Bagsy, not me.
Bagsy, really? We're doing Bagsy in 2021. Gosh.
We'll say it quickly before Zach can.
I think I know my order.
Okay.
I'm not going to go into a lot into this because there's not a huge amount between them. None of these books were bad. None of them have really struck a huge note with me. But all of them have a sort of level of potential. But in fourth place is going to be Land of the Living Gods. I just got the least from it, from a kind of character attachment point of view. Third place is World of Summoners. Again, a really good premise, but I probably need a full volume to understand whether I like that book or not, really. Second place is Step by Bloody Step. Being in, I had a bit of a roller coaster journey with that one, and Being All Silent, again, it's sort of more interesting than it is like pure entertainment or pure amusing at this point, but there's definitely enough there to keep me going. And top spot is New Masters, which I hear Zach's comment, it is very dense.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I like what I got from that, and I felt a real sense of place and time in the world it was set in. That's it. That's my 4.
Zach?
What's up? I am struggling to place these books, so I'm just going to wing it. 4 for me, I think, is... I think 4 is Step by Bloody Step. I think it's a very pretty book. I think it is a good comic. It just doesn't tick any of the Zach boxes. And
Zach loves having his boxes ticked.
No turtles, am I
right? Completely turtleless as far as I can see. So yeah, I think it's good, but it's not for me. And I think more fantasy orientated people will like it, and more story driven than character driven people will dig it, like you two nerds.
I think there's a fair bit of character in it.
There's some character in it,
like
just no character names or character
No, but there's a lot of character in the expressions and stuff, like in action rather than dialogue.
Yeah, there's personality with that. It's just not got that,
No one says anything cool.
Yeah.
No, it's not even that. It's not that Jeff Lemire kind of character work where everything is like, well, goddamn, you've done some character work.
Yeah,
I
get that.
Yeah.
Would you've loved it if the very last page is the little girl saying, "Let's go kick some ass," and that's the only.
Yeah, that's what
set
was
of
missing.
words.
Yeah, that, or if they'd started reminiscing about a hockey match they once went to, I think that would.
And how miserable they all are.
Being sad about like their dad being like an underwater welder.
Classic things that happen frequently in fantasy stories, providing they're written by Jeff Lemire.
It's a regular Essex County over here.
How have we not done an Essex County episode yet?
No.
Just four people crying about like a 10-year-old book. Older, right? Essex County must be like over 10 years old now.
Yeah, it's
old.
Much older than that. I think it's like 15. Maybe more than that.
And as always, Jeff, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on to talk about Essex County.
I'm sure you're still promoting that.
It's getting a TV show, baby.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Any day now, other people might care. What was the point here? 3, right? 3, yeah. Let's hit you with a bit of the 3, baby. 3, I think, is World of Summoning. I quite like the premise. I think it's a kind of good concept, and the cast of characters that are thrown at us, even though it's kind of standard like shonen fodder to like throw you 4 or 5 characters and then hope you'll come back next week. I quite like the same thing Matt said. I like the kindness of Tokyo. And I think there's potential for that to be an interesting kind of foil to this quite what looks like it could be quite a brutal world towards the more monstrous side of things that are getting summoned. I think it could be nice to see the, happy-go-lucky kid show you what it's like on the other side of the tracks down in the fantasy districts.
Such a great phrase to be able to say.
Yeah, you just don't get to say it that often, and now we do. Sweet. So I think there's a niceness to it that ultimately appeals to me. I don't know where it's going to go. I feel like there's a constant risk with anything that's like, and they're at school, where it can fall into
to being just one of those.
But it could stay interesting, and on that grounds, sweet.
I'm in.
Fucking hell. 2, I'm gonna go with Land of the Living Gods. I quite like the art. Particularly had a soft spot for after Naledi gets kind of collared by the bounty hunters, and then there's just that page with just "run" in giant letters. I think if I can get a few moments like that every issue, I'll be there for that. I'm hoping we will get more character explanation, because she has been left quite vague. I think the balance of trying to establish a character, establish a world, and then establish the mystery of gods, magic god plant, is quite a heavy thing to do in like 20-something pages. So there. And then for first, I'm going to go New Masters. I like it a lot. I do think there is a lot to unpack, but I think the art's good. I think it's well written, and it's a different future than we're used to seeing, because much like Land of the Living Gods, I think the cultural influence is something that we don't get a lot of in American comics, and it's nice to kind of get a look at a future that isn't inspired by New York City and all the things we're always inspired by. I've been reading Undiscovered Country, which is the Scott Snyder Charles Soule book about America goes dark for 30 years, and all the characters in it, or the bulk of the characters, are all from the world outside of America. And even in a comic populated by characters that are not American, everything still ends up being about the United States. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to have something here that's like not about the United States and is legitimately not about the United States.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody wants any continued reading, last year I read, was it last year or the year before? Jalia from TKO, which is another like Afro futurist sort of book. And then there's essentially all of Unique Studios, which is
of course
precisely what they do, now being published by Dark Horse, I think.
It is, took over for Malika Volume 2, I think, and have then reprinted the first. And
but they've got one of the
others.
Particularly with Comixology shitting the bed recently. I think Unique Studios have a online subscription service that's something like $2.99 a month. Something silly cheap.
Yeah, and not that many books.
Not that many books yet, but you know.
Who reprinted Prince of Cats in the last couple of years?
Has
it got a reprint like recent, as in like in the last 3 or 4 years?
Everything I look into recently seems to be Dark Horse, so let's not rule it out.
Image.
Okay. But yeah, that's my part of my reasons for this being number one. Is it's just nice to see a future that is influenced by a culture that is, one, not our own, and two, not American.
Yeah, ton of like this cultural melange of like all various cultures from the from like the African continent.
Yes.
And like so. God, my top three. We've got 4 books. 4, 3, and 2 are a real struggle for me to actually order. Unlike Will, I actually really liked just about everything this month. Like, I say unlike Will, that's cool. What I mean is, like, I actually have strong feelings this month, and have found it really hard to rate.
My feelings are floppy.
So I'm actually, just because I really, really enjoyed it, but I think I'll enjoy it more later than I would right now. Like Will says, maybe give it a volume. Number 4 for me is going to be World of Summoning. Really liked it. I think it has a lot of promise. It just has the problem of being the first chapter of a new ongoing manga. Which, is just that it just has so much premise to establish. But I think it's going to be really good by just some of the hints that we're getting. And if it dedicates itself to exploring actually like what this stuff could mean, then I think it could be very, very good. So yeah, that's a 4 on just the strength of it as a chapter. It could have, and in another month, it could have been a lot higher. Number 3, oh my God, this is hard. I think might be Step by Bloody Step. I really liked this. Really liked it a lot. Especially later on in it, like we were saying, but I don't have quite enough yet. So number 2 is Land of the Living Gods. And then the one that was pretty much decided from the very start, the one that I knew as soon as I'd finished this was my book of the week, was The New Masters. This book has so much promise. It's a good first issue for me, as a world building fan, and I am excited for more. I want to know everything about this, and just like it has. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to more of this.
Cool. I agree. I think it's a good book. But we've all had pretty different top 4 approaches.
Yeah, there's been some variety this week, which isn't always the case.
No, and I think it comes from all of it being much of a muchness quality-wise.
Yeah.
Like we're separating them on very, very fine margins.
Yeah. I think that's true this month. It's
Yeah,
been
there's
an interesting
nothing.
month for comics.
There's definitely nothing there that I would have been uncomfortable putting as like a number 1 in another month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In like a less tight month. But this was a tight month.
Mm-hmm.
So on that note, anyone got anyone else? Anything else they want to add?
Nothing more. Just everyone out there, look after yourselves, and hard times going on. Talk to people if you need to. I hope we've been a good distraction, and just look after yourselves and be kind to one another.
Yeah, what he said.
Good. As always, check us out on biggerthancapes.com and whatnot. And we've got like 50 of these now, so if you're new, suffer through the last 50 episodes too.
I promise I've always been this insufferable.
He really has.
Guarantee.
Yeah. So we have been Matt, Will, and Zach, collectively Bigger Than Capes, and will continue to be. And remember that comics are
Bigger than
capes.